Anyway, the moral of the story, you sound great.
Cool.
All right, man, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I am super stoked to have you. Before we jump into the interview today, I want to give a shout out to Leonard for leaving me some amazing feedback for the Beyond UX Design book, Master Your Craft Beyond Pixels and Prototypes. Don't forget, if you get the book from beyonduxdesign.com/book, you leave some honest feedback, you'll get a chance to win a shout on the show just like this, a badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker, a free book, or even a chance to win a one-on-one with me. And I want to give a quick book update, y'all. We are so close to launch. I've got the manuscript pretty much done at this point. This week, I'm going to be laying it all out and getting it ready to publish. And I'm hoping this won't take more than a week or two at most. We are so close. So head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/book and pre-order your copy for over 50% off. But that only lasts until the full book is released, so don't miss this deal. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. If you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Sarah, Quan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin for all their support. And if you want to join those fine folks and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month. That's less than $1 an episode. And if you do that, you'll get some sweet perks for your support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. For more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing here, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. This week's episode is brought to you by Mento Design Academy, where it's not just about learning UX design, it's about discovering your unique path in it. And their approach is different. It's personal. It's tailored to you. They don't just teach, they inspire students to use their passions as a driving force in their learning. And that is something that I've experienced firsthand as a mentor. I've been fortunate enough to guide students who are exploring concepts that they're truly passionate about. It's not just about following a curriculum, it's about shaping that curriculum around what excites each student. And this approach emphasizes not just knowledge, but a deep love for the discipline. And seeing my mentees grow, apply their passions, and craft portfolios that are genuinely them, it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. So if you're looking for a UX course that's as unique as you are, check out Mento Design Academy. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/mento. And just for my listeners, use the promo code BeyondUX200 to get $200 off the course. So join Mento and let your passions lead your learning journey. Now, speaking of passions, I've got my buddy Tregg Frank on the horn today, and we're going to talk all about side projects. So a lot of you guys out there, you got 9-to-5s, maybe you're under NDA, maybe you want to make some extra spending cash. I don't know, but we're going to talk to Tregg today all about side projects. So I'm really excited to do that. Tregg is a senior product designer, leader, maker, and mentor. And during the day, he works at Stark, making tools for accessible design. And at night, he's building Divinate, a user research tool that eliminates busy work with AI. He also curates a design resource list, and he writes on design at degreeless.design. And when he's not designing, he's either hanging out with his wife and toddler or he's playing electric guitar. Tregg, I'm glad you took a break from those things to join me on the show. Welcome to Beyond UX Design, man. How's it going? It's great to have you here.
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's funny, like literally the second you said the word toddler, I heard my toddler start screaming downstairs.
Oh, no, dude, I know the feeling. Oh, it's all good, man.
Yeah. Busy plate, but yeah, I'm passionate about everything on that list. So yeah, here I am.
Right on. Well, you know what? Don't worry about the toddler. I know how it is. This is the beauty of post. We can edit it out. Unless it's really cute, we might leave it in. All right, so we're going to talk about all this stuff today for side projects. Get your questions ready as you're listening because we're going to do an AMA next week with Tregg, and you can hop on to LinkedIn Live session. You can ask Tregg any questions that you want about this stuff today. So make sure to get those questions ready. Tregg, you want to add anything to that?
You can ask all sorts of things. I'm up for anything. I would actually love questions about research and about business.
Research and business. There we go. All right,
business
cool. So
questions.
Keep an ear out today as you're listening. And don't forget, following week, this is going to be out on a Tuesday. Next week, keep an eye out on LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn and also our newsletter. Sign up at beyonduxdesign.com. We'll send out some emails there so you can learn more about how to sign up and all that stuff. So yeah, man, welcome to the show. So I read your bio a little bit there, but you got an interesting little backstory. Before we jump into today, tell everybody out there a little bit about you and how did you get into this game?
Yeah. So my usual, if I'm in an interview, like a job interview, I usually start with like, I got my first job at JP Morgan Chase, but I'm going to start before that.
Start before that.
It feels like it's pretty relevant. Because before design, I was in a metal band, I played guitar.
Right on, dude.
It was like, we were super serious about it. I mean, you know, we were a local band, but it was like, that was the thing I wanted to do.
Didn't we all?
Yeah, I was like super into making music. Through doing stuff for my band, I started like designing our album covers. I started I ran our Facebook. I found design by chance.
Yeah, man.
So I had a couple clients before I even really knew what design was. I had done design for a national touring act, and like,
wow, man.
I'd kind of like started to figure out that was something I liked, and then made that transition because I was in school for recording arts actually, and I joined this Facebook group that was all these people who ran studios, and no one wanted to pay them, and they didn't have any customers anyways. So if they had customers, they didn't want to pay, but getting customers was impossible. And I was like, I'm no economist, but I know a little bit about supply and demand, and I'm adding to the supply of these small studios, and there's no demand because everyone can do it at home now. So I changed to design.
I know, man.
And kind of the rest is history. So I then, went through the whole design program, found UX through that, blew my mind. Ended up at JP Morgan Chase as my first job. Then I went to Startup Land. I went to direct-to-consumer clear liner startup called Candid. They're actually B2B now. They're not direct-to-consumer anymore. But
Pivot.
I did the startup thing, and then I'm now employee 4 at Stark. I've been there for a minute. Joined in 2020 actually, so I've been around for a second. So that's the long and short of it.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's cool. I similar to me actually. I was playing music, and that's how I got into design. I'd never been to school. I was actually going for economics, and my band was like, "Hey, we need a website. We need all that stuff." And then I realized, like, oh wait, my friends need websites, and they need album art, and I was like, oh, I can charge for this.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet, dude. Maybe I can make a living. That's cool, man. I love that. What was the national touring act you did the website for?
It's funny because they literally just broke up like a week ago. Forever broke up. Their name was Issues.
Okay.
They were I don't know how you would describe them. They have like a boy band vocalist, but they're a metal band. So they kind of do both
okay.
in a very interesting way.
Yeah, no, I dig that.
Kind of like R&B plus metal. It's very interesting. But I made designs for a t-shirt for their first EP back in the day.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's funny because like thinking back on it, you're like, oh man, we're going to be like famous rock stars. We're going to make all this money. And then, I can't tell you, like, I know so many bands personally from just playing for a long time that like quote unquote made it.
Yeah.
And the amount of money they've actually made, I've definitely made way more than them as a professional designer. So I think it all worked out. All worked out. Awesome, dude. Well, I'm really stoked to have you on today. So we're going to talk a little bit about this idea of side projects. It's something, we hear a lot about hustle culture, and we hear a lot about like, the unfortunate need to do side projects. I think what we're going to talk a little bit about today, I want you to kind of talk about this. We're not talking about this to just make ends meet. We're talking about this for other reasons. So why don't you dig into that a little bit first and tell us about this idea when you talk about a side project. What does it mean to you? And why is it valuable for designers to explore?
Yeah. I had a professor who he joked that like when your Starbucks barista goes home, no one's like, "Hey, are you making any lattes tonight?" And it's like, "No, I did that at work all day." Meanwhile, designers and developers are like, "But what are you doing when you're not here?" Right. It's such a almost like a trope. Yeah. Just like such a common conversation. And I think in some ways that sentiment is true, that like we do overdo it sometimes, and we do stretch ourselves, and there's bad things that come from that. When you talk about hustle culture, it's like gotta grind. And we've seen those like doomer memes recently where it's like I just have to be grinding harder, and it's just like a loop of
just grinding and grinding.
I just have to be grinding harder.
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah, but I think there are people who make espresso, and it is their passion, and their job is making espresso, but they go home and they have their fancy coffee setup. Yeah. And it might be different than even what they have in the shop, and they do make espresso in their home. I think when people talk about looking for someone who does something on the side, they're looking for someone who's deeply passionate about the space. And I think if you feel like you're called to this space, that probably is something that intrigues you, to like find something that feeds you creatively. But I also I wouldn't say that it's ever like required. If you are in an established role, you're happy with what you're doing, like side projects, like who cares? But I think there's something to be said about doing a side project when you're either not fully happy, you need some creative outlet, there's something you want to learn, there's stuff that you want to try that you can't in your 9 to 5. There's like a lot of various reasons why I would say that it is worth making the lattes at home every once in a while.
That's a great analogy. I love that. I actually do. I used to work with, it's funny, a barista. He's actually going to be on the show soon.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, he was a barista. He actually opened coffee shops, and then he got a job as UX designer. And he was UX designer, and then he'd go home and he would make espresso. So he was actually like, he would do like latte art and stuff. He would practice his latte art.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, yeah, Justin Crease. He's going to be on the show soon. So anyway, dude, I want to talk a little bit about your journey. So you've got, we mentioned Degreeless a second ago. You're obviously working at, a startup. You were at a bank before. Tell us a little bit about like that side project journey for you, and how'd you end up getting into, your side project hustle? Is it because you loved that proverbial espresso at home, or was there another reason why you started to do it?
Yeah. There was a few things that led to it. My first like real side project that I launched was Degreeless, and that was I'm pretty sure it was like the week of Thanksgiving in 2018. They had this like little hack week. I think it was through Product Hunt, where it was like in a week launch a product, and I was like, that sounds fun. And I had just come out of school, so I went to school for design, and I realized that there's a lot of your education when you go to school for design is stuff that's available to anyone ever, if you know where to look. And the problem is that like having it curated for you is like part of the value, part of what you're paying for. The other half is like the connections and also the actual like mentorship from good professors, if you're lucky enough to have a good program. And that's like hard to replace. But the actual information, I had that fresh in my brain and I wanted to give it to people. So Degreeless was how to basically learn design without a degree. And it was just everything that I had collected going through design school for 4 years in one place. And there was like that, like, like the touchy-feely side of that. Like, I want people to have this information. But there's also like the reality that I was working at JP Morgan Chase at the time, and I knew a few things were true. I could not take anything home with me. It was literally not legal for me to transfer things from my work device to a personal device. So I could not have sketches. I could not take photos of like the whiteboards and stuff to take home. Like I could take documentation for work purposes, but I could not ever put that in my portfolio. They own that stuff and they will not let you show it. What you can show is screenshots of the live product. So like there's an asterisk of whether or not the things I was going to work on would ever ship.
Yeah, of course.
So I knew I needed something in my portfolio that was real.
Maybe years from now, like even if it does ship, it's like, well, I need a job now. I got to, what do you put in your portfolio today? Yeah.
Yeah. The main project I worked on was autosave in the Chase app. There was like a huge plan for all the things it was going to be. And to this day, most of that stuff has not come to fruition. But it actually launched, I want to say 6 months after I left. I took it from 0 to 1. So I was in the first like round of like research and pitching. They stood up a team of like 60 something people with like millions of dollars in internal funding for this team to get this thing stood up. And like I delivered the screens, and then I was like, and I'm done. And I left, and then they shipped it like 6 months later. And it's the same as what I left it as. It just took time. There's like legal reasons why I'd have to go through processes. Like I get it. But anyway, I just knew that I needed something in my portfolio that I was proud of. And I also was like, hey, maybe I could make some money. I tried like Amazon affiliate links on it, and that ended up being harder to manage than you would think. You have to have like privacy policies and stuff on your page. And I didn't have that.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
And back then I couldn't ask ChatGPT to make me one. So I didn't have that. So they kicked me out of the program.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking out loud too, but I imagine, this is something I tell a lot of people too. It's like, you want your work, your portfolio to speak to the work you want. And, so I mean, let's say you're at a big corporation, bank, for example, that's fine if you want to go work at another bank. But if you want to leave and go work at a startup or something, chances are very good that work won't really necessarily be applicable to whatever future work you want. So, what do you do? And I think you may have mentioned this earlier, but that is like another, I think, a really great way, I think, to highlight work that you want to do is by creating your own side project that is the work you want to do to show off so that you can sell that to the next company. So that's really cool, man. So I love that, dude. So I'm curious, like when you talk about like side projects and stuff, like how are they valuable to a job seeker? How are they helping you? What are the things that you feel like you have learned along the way?
Yeah. I've worked with technologies that companies I'm like interviewing for or taking jobs at. I've like worked with those technologies on my own time. So that's a big thing too. Like just like stretching and learning new technologies, learning about how to like build and grow something. Those skills are very transferable. But even like down to like the nitty gritty, it's hard to build a design system that works for the biggest bank in America. Like to be fair, like it's hard to make something that's a scalable design system that works for like all the requirements. But I was not proud of what my designs looked like coming out of the Chase system. I knew that if I had full control, I could do better, but I couldn't have full control for like a plethora of reasons. So like you said, like show the work that you want. I wanted to show that I actually had visual chops. When you look at a screen too, for something like Chase, where they have thousands of designers and thousands of teams that are working on all these things, did you design all of these pieces or were you using like a sticker kit? It's like hard to know when you glance at something. So it's like, here's something I did top to bottom. Yeah, I think like that's a big piece of that. And then also like, I think just showing that you are passionate about the space that you're entering into, it makes you interesting. There's like more to talk about. I mean, like one of the biggest pieces of advice I give to people when they're asking for portfolio reviews is to talk about everything but design in your about page. Unless like for me, I like design history. That's like not something that I would ever talk about like in a case study about like, you know, an X-ray application that I made for some startup. Like it's just like not something that comes up. So I talk about that, but like talk about the things that make you interesting. And so if you have a side project, if you like working with bands, if you like doing, you know, band websites or t-shirts, having something where you talk about that makes you more interesting. And now I know that like not only can you do design, not only do you have chops, can you move fast, when you're passionate about this space, but also like you're someone who I could have in my Slack for 40 hours a week to talk about things other than design. And like you're a human beyond like, you know, beyond pixels. Like maybe you like hiking, so you make a side project about hiking. So now you've told me a few things. You can do design. You've shown me work that you want. Maybe it relates like, oh, we are working on a mobile app and you designed a mobile app, even though you're 9 to 5, you're doing a web app. And also like you have passions and interests and people might even hang out with you. You know, you might actually have some friends, which actually is like a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually I'm glad you give that advice because I give the exact same advice, which is show off your personality. I've like, I can't tell you how many people, and it's funny, I actually had somebody on a mentor session once from ADP List tell me that they were afraid to put their side project on their portfolio. Mm-hmm. They thought it was going to like hurt them in some way. And it's funny because I was just like, well, would you want to work for that company if that company didn't want you to have a side project? Like why would you want that? Why are you trying to impress that company? Like, and I think that's something really interesting that you just kind of brought up is like use the side project as a way to show your personality. And I think it's one of those things like, you know, I tell people this all the time is like, we have more power over our jobs or the jobs we are willing to take than I think we often assume. You don't have to take you don't have to take an offer just because somebody gives it to you. You know, be self-selective if you can. I mean, obviously not everybody can, and some people, you know, need the money. But if you can be more selective, I think this is a really great point, is using your side project as a way to show off your personality to weed out the companies that you wouldn't want to work for in the first place. You know? I mean, to your point, like if somebody saw that like I made, you know, t-shirts for bands and was like, no, they're not serious enough. Like, I don't think I would fit in that place.
Exactly. I think like self-selecting in a way is a good thing in a way. Yeah. Like if that's who you are and a company doesn't want that, then you probably don't want to work for that company. I understand, like you said, like if you have a family and you need a check, do what you have to for a while. I've done that. I took a job there's a couple of jobs I didn't mention in my career path. I took one that like I loved the people, but it was an agency, so not really my vibe. But I was like, I can stick it out through the pandemic and do this. And then I ended up landing at Stark, which was like a dream job. So like, I've had those moments where like you take what you have to. I had another job where I have Degreeless was an active side project. I have a list of side projects on my page. I talked about my side projects in my interview. I talked about them actually in multiple steps in my interview. They're in my resume. And then I launched another side project after having accepted the job. And they were like, why do you have a side project? And I'm like, that's weird because all of these things on my website are side projects. So I would say like, do not be afraid to show them, and also be like really clear that like I do side projects, and they're a very intentional thing if that's something you like. Some companies don't want you to do stuff outside of your 9 to 5. I personally think that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think they can own your time. But if you're like early stage startup, like if you're employee 5 or 6 and it's like, hey, we're trying to make this thing happen, and then you're also trying to make something else happen, I kind of understand the inclination, but I think it's out of their purview.
I am totally with you on that. Yeah.
There's my thoughts.
Who are you to tell me I can't do this after you're not paying me. Why does it matter? I totally agree. Here's a good question though, because that is a concern. How are you going to find time to do your work when you have this side thing? How do you manage this? So you've got a full-time job. You had a full-time job before working at Chase. I imagine that was probably a lot of hours too. How do you manage this side project versus real, I almost said real job. I hate to scratch that. I'm going to scratch that from the record. How do you manage the side project from your normal 40-hour full-time gig?
This sounds like the most like hustle bro thing, but like if you say that you value something, but then you never spend time on it, do you actually value that thing? So for me, I value my family. I value hanging out with my son. Got a second son on the way, and I will value hanging out with him just the same.
Right.
Thank you.
2 boys, man. I got 2 kids, 2 boys, and
yeah,
man, they're rough.
Yeah, we need liability insurance.
Seriously, makes for an exciting after hours. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, exactly. But I value that. So what I do, my schedule looks like I wake up really early because I don't have a choice anyways, because that's when the kid's waking up. I wake up really early and I start work at 7:30 to 8. I try to work at 7:30. And then I go till 4:30, which is like an early cutoff, but when you do the math, it's a good chunk of time.
Start at 7:30. That's a long time, man.
Yeah. From 4:30 till about 8 o'clock at night is family time. And that's like sacred time. Don't touch it. And because I value that 100%. And then when 8 o'clock comes around, I have decided, I actually just posted about this yesterday. On paternity leave, I had a lot of time to think while like you're holding the baby and he's napping and you're like playing Super Smash Brothers or whatever on your Nintendo Switch as he's sleeping. That's when you have the first one. I'm sure the second one is going to be a very different story. But
yeah, you just let them leave. You leave the second kid alone. You're like, yeah, I'll be all right. They don't even help.
At that point. He's made it this far. But yeah, so I had a lot of time to think, and I started to realize a few things. One, when I joined Stark, I was like, I feel like I could be an employee 4, and that's exciting to me. And at the time, I was like, I want to be a founder, but I don't think I have it. And so that was what I was comfortable with. That felt right. And I've enjoyed that, and I've learned so much. And I've worked with like one of the coolest founders of all time, Kat Noon. She's awesome. There's so much to learn from her. But through paternity leave, I was like, I think I want to be a founder. I think I have that in me. And so that's something I value. And so from 8 o'clock until whatever time, I work on side projects. And so that means that I'm not playing video games most of the time, and I'm not watching Netflix. And I'll turn on a YouTube video if it's one that I can like play in the background while I work. But otherwise, it's like the thing I value is that I want to be a founder. Like I've said, I want that. And if I feel like I have that in me and I don't push myself to do those things, then not only am I cheating myself, but also like I'm not living my values, and that's incongruent and something that would drive me crazy and burn me out. Like if I was like, I have this ability and I can do this thing, and then I was like, but I'm gonna chill, that would be the worst feeling for me. And that's, I think, a piece that's missing in hustle culture is like, if you don't have that at all, if you're like, I would actually love to get a job where I can just show up and then leave, that's
nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Awesome. Actually, do it. Matter of fact, I know a couple companies where you could, where that's an option for you.
We'll put them in the show notes. I heard recently,
yeah, exactly.
Rest Invest. That was something that I've heard someone say. So like you just hang out and just get vested and you just like do the bare minimum. I've heard retire in
Yeah.
place. And there's no, and it's interesting too, because like what you were just mentioning before, it's like this is something that like could be, it could be a phase, right? Like maybe right now in your life, like I just had kids or something, or I just had a life event, something happened with my parents, whatever, my partner, who knows. I just need a break. I just need to get paid.
Yeah.
And I just need to chill and get my money and do the, check out at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, whatever, and just focus on other stuff for a little while.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, like, there is nothing wrong with at some point, maybe later, like I want to hustle and I want to do this thing. And so I think the thing that really irks me, I think, about the hustle culture is like, oh, if you're not doing it like me, then you're a loser, man. That kind of stuff. Like,
Right.
It really drives me crazy. I really appreciate I wouldn't consider your perspective hustle bro culture by any means, but I think that's the thing.
It feels like it edges on it, but I have some realism.
It's your passion. I mean, I think realize that's a big thing. Like people listening, I just want to take away. It's like, if that's not you, cool, man. Like it's all good. Like there's nothing that this episode is not meant to encourage anyone. I think you would agree with this, Tregg. Like it's not meant to encourage everybody to go hustle and do side projects. It's for the people who are interested in it and want to do it. And we're going to provide some tips and resources. So speaking of time, this is something that I'm kind of curious about. Obviously, if you had more people involved, you could spend less time. You could share the time, share the effort. So I'm curious, what's your perspective on partnering, finding a partner? How does that work? Is that something you've been thinking about? I don't know if you do that with Degreeless or not, but what's the advantages, maybe disadvantages of finding a partner?
Yeah. So I had a side project that was, we would send out a metal album once a week that was like handpicked and curated.
All right.
And it would go out
awesome.
via SMS text message, which I learned a few very interesting things about SMS. Number one, never start a business or product that's reliant on text messages. It's a mistake. It's not worth it.
I've thought about
there's a bunch of regulation. Like the reason why text messages actually get read is because there's a ton of regulation around it, and it makes it impossible to like send them to people. Anyway, but that side project, I worked with a partner on that, an engineer, and he's an awesome guy, like great friend, but also he was like not as passionate about the subject as I was, and so I was like way ahead in terms of design than he was in engineering. And it was harder for him to get going because it's like, I mean, it's fun to work on this project, but also like not as fun as whatever else I would rather do. And also we kind of proved that like people liked the thing, but they would never pay for it. So we like invalidated that it was a market anyway.
Oh no. Well,
which is good.
Better soon than later. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I mean, when you're paying like $8 to send out text messages and then like that's every week, like you have to have people paying you. Yeah, we proved that it wasn't a market. So there's two sides of that coin. One, I was able to do more than I would have been able to on my own with that side project. But also there was a bottleneck where I wanted to do more and move faster on it than he was able to or was passionate to. I also have felt personally, because I'm from Denver. I mean, I was born in Washington State, but I've lived in Denver most of my life. And I felt, and I still feel this sometimes, I felt disadvantaged coming from the middle of the country, not being from SF or from New York. And I actually, my first job was in New York, so I got relocated out to New York, which was great. I felt like I broke that glass ceiling. But like I've met people, in SF, in New York, who in college were able to have side projects where they're working with a team of multiple people and able to like ship something and have people try it and like fail. And I was so jealous of that. So I think that experience is valuable. And if you can have it, I would go for it. Because like, yeah, you can learn a lot. I would just be careful not to like put yourself in a position where you are stressed out because you are more interested than other people. So like have realistic expectations, have that conversation with the person up front, like how invested are you in this? And it's like it's cool if it's just like a for fun thing for them. Now for Divinate, that I just launched yesterday on Product Hunt, I'm working with a partner on that, co-founder technically, and we are 50-50 partners, 50-50 invested. We both are fully in. And what's been really nice is we're like on the same wavelength, and also we keep each other like honest. And what's cool is when you have a partner, if you have a day where it's like, hey man, I don't have it in me, I have to like go soak in the bathtub and like chill because I'm burned out or whatever. He's like, that's fine. And he's still making progress forward. So having a good partner is a big deal. It can be hard to find though.
Yeah, I was going to just say, like, I think that's like the hardest thing is the expectations, right? And especially when you find something that you're really passionate about and this is your thing and you bring on somebody, or maybe you come up with together and then you find out like, oh, they're not putting as much effort. There is that sort of animosity that can start to grow.
Yeah.
And I think like personally, even with work, with partnership, your 40-hour full-time job, whatever, expectations is really the most important thing to set early. I'm curious, could you talk a little bit about that? Like as you're finding a partner, like, I don't know, maybe you could talk about Divinate actually. Like, how'd you find a partner? Is that somebody you just knew, or was there a resource where you could go and find other people and vet like a Tinder or something, swipe right or swipe left on partners? Is there a resource where you could find those partners so you could make sure that like, they are on the same page before you go down that rabbit hole? Because I imagine that's a lot of wasted time and effort to find out a year later that like, oh, this isn't going to work out.
That can feel fatiguing for sure. Yeah, so I worked with Tyler. That's my co-founder on Divinate. I've worked with him at Stark. When I actually asked him I left Stark for like a minute and I came back. I asked him to be like a co-founder on this thing when I was not at Stark. And then I came back and joined him again. But I had seen him launch a side project before, so I knew his technical ability was very, very high. Actually, it was a cool concept. I actually used it a few times and it was very interesting, but it's one of those things that was like super cool, but hard to get people to pay for. It actually turned Notion into an email inbox. So you could like receive emails into Notion, which was pretty cool. And like it worked. It was like, you could just like drag and drop your emails around like a Notion builder inside Notion. Very cool. And I was like, there's like a lot of technical back-end stuff in that is confounding to me as a designer, that if I had a technical idea, that he'd be someone to reach out to. And so, I had an idea that I knew I needed an engineer. So I reached out and he was like 100% in, basically from the get-go, which was cool. I think meeting people to work with is hard. I wish I knew of like a good, like you said, like a Tinder sort of thing would be fun.
Sounds like an opportunity. Maybe
that sounds like a good side project. They get acquired by Product Hunt. I think if you're like in school right now and like, there's a computer science section, if you're not an engineer, go hang out with the computer science people and make friends and like find someone. If that's the direction you want to go, like go search people out. Like, let's say, actually, a great place to start, we've talked about this, is like your passions. Let's say you like tabletop gaming. You might know some engineers because they tend to be dorky type people who play tabletop games and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like, just try making something for the thing you're passionate about. So like a dice rolling game and like design it and then have someone build it. I'm sure you can, if you really are interested, you can find people to work with. And if not, if you are in the middle of nowhere and you're in a place where like, I'm not going to school, I'm doing this in my free time, you can try to build it on your own with no code tools. Those are getting better and better. That's what Degreeless was. It was actually still is. It's all no code using like, actually what's cool is I use a Pocket, the bookmarking tool. I have that hooked up to Mozilla, a Zapier thing.
Yeah.
I guess they acquired it. So I whenever I save something to Pocket, it goes onto the into the CMS thing on Webflow automatically. So it actually even like shows like estimated time to read, and that's all automated. So I keep a fresh roll of content coming in through just like one little click.
Just
and that was all
finding a random article and just clicking a button and then boom, populates your CO. Oh, that's really cool, dude. That's a smart idea.
And so when you're doing that kind of stuff, you're actually thinking like an engineer. And what's cool is when you flex that part of your brain, this is like the power of side projects to me. Then when you talk to an engineer, you can express what's going on. The thing that they're really good at is making it actually happen with the unique stack that your product uses. But being able to communicate that is very valuable. So,
yeah, that's really cool, man. So I'm curious, like, because this seems like one of those things with side projects. People can get, like really, really into it. They get really passionate about it. They try it out for a little while, and then they just like lose interest or fall off, I guess, for lack of a better word. How do you stay motivated doing this, especially when you're not making any money for a long time? Is there some way that you have figured out for yourself? And maybe this is a very personal question, might not apply to everybody, but how does one stay motivated, especially in those early stages when, you're not really, there's no return on that investment maybe for a while?
It's a good question. I don't know.
That's why I'm here, man. I'm full of them.
I don't know if I know yet. Yeah, staying motivated. For Degreeless, it has been consistently getting over 1,000 unique visitors every month since I launched it in 2018.
Wow.
I
That's awesome.
relaunched it actually almost exactly a year ago. And since then, actually, it's got even a bigger bump. And I've built like a newsletter from that. And to me, that the ROI, because I lose money on Degreeless, I have to pay Webflow's fairly expensive hosting fees because I choose to use their CMS tool, which was a choice. The ROI for Degreeless is dopamine from people visiting it and liking it, getting something out of it. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I go like, it feels good to have people like the thing I made. Also, like, I like how the page looks. It was fun to design. I like writing about design. I'm passionate about it. So that's another thing. And then also, probably like the biggest like potential like cash return is it builds my network. And so
Yeah.
like when I applied to Candid, they had seen Degreeless and they had shared it around internally. And I didn't know that they had done that when I applied. And so it was like I kind of already had an in. So I had connections in the industry. I had connections to the team because they had seen the work I had done. And since I've met like Grace from Design Buddies, when I met her at Config, she's like, I used Degreeless when I was learning design.
Oh, wow.
And that was so cool to me because I look up to Grace because her community is huge.
Oh, I know. Yeah. She's
a
great,
freaking
too.
nature in building community. I don't know. I felt the pain of building community. That's like part of my job at Stark is like talking to the community, get them to engage. It's hard. And she's
It is.
like, I don't know how she does it.
She's like second nature. Yeah, she's actually on the show. We recorded an episode a couple weeks ago. She's gonna be on soon.
Right on.
Yeah, talking
I'll have
about
to
like
listen.
yeah, basically it's like, and this goes to what you're talking about, like making LinkedIn fun. Because
I
she's
love
like trying to like, I don't know, bring dancing back to LinkedIn and stuff. LinkedIn, that's kind of like her
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, it's incredible. Well, that's really cool. She had used she'd used your app. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a huge because like part of it is I didn't make most of the content that's on Degreeless. It's a curated list, but I have very intentionally curated it in a way that's like from top to bottom. I'm going to take you from like really basic stuff to like the more advanced things that are harder to find. Like I said, it's like I made the site, it's curation, but I didn't make most of the content. But there's still something in me that's like so appreciative of when people get value out of that it does something for me. Like it makes me feel good about myself. Plus, like, cool people have used it and seen it, and it's almost like a little badge that I get to carry. That like, yeah, I've made something people have used and they've like benefited from. Now for Divinate, which is like an actual business we're trying to start, like it's a B2B SaaS product for user research. Staying motivated there is, I don't know 100% because we're still so early. I think like I like building stuff and I like people who build things. So I'm building something for people who build stuff. So like that like checks off a lot of boxes to stay motivated. But I also know what my ambitions are. And I think like I said, if I don't work towards those things, that'll be like a disconnect. It'll be incongruent and I'll feel worse for not having tried. Okay, today we launched yesterday. Today we have 0 paying customers. We have like 30 something people who have gone through the process of making an account, and we don't have a free tier because it's expensive to run AI tools. We're bootstrapped.
Yeah,
it's pretty pricey. Actually, what's more expensive than AI is video. We learned that video is like 100 times more expensive. Wild.
Geez. To host the video, like, because it's so big.
Hosting it and restreaming it. Yeah. I also saw something recently about how expensive it is for Twitch to have a stream with like 5,000 viewers. It's like thousands of dollars per stream that they're spending.
Wow, God. How are they making their money? I guess ads and stuff.
They're kind of not.
No, they're not. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. They
pay
cash.
Streamers too. So they're actually like paying on top of, oh, wow. Yeah.
Yep. The economics are rough. Anyway, they're
hoping somebody pays, somebody buys them. That's
yeah. And okay,
that's
asterisk
crazy.
here.
Yeah.
This is a great reason why starting side projects is great. If you want to be a product designer, which to me is much more business focused, you learn so much more about business. So now I know that, hey, we have in the future, we have a product that's related to video. Video costs are expensive. How do I make sure that I'm designing it in a way that we're getting maximum value out of that without burning costs? So anyway, right now we have 0 paying customers, and that could be like discouraging. But the fact that like 30 people trusted us to OAuth with Google is actually kind of awesome. That's like the keys to your life, your Google account. Like,
do no evil.
To turn those people into customers is, I think, motivation in of itself, because I believe in what we're doing too, and I'm excited about it. Now, if in 6 months no one has ever paid for it. That'll be a different thing. And it's like, okay, maybe it's time to reassess what we're doing here and like adjust course, which is, when people the move fast and break things is that it's like we've been trying this thing for 3 to 6 months and it's not getting traction. What's fundamentally wrong with it? How do I adjust and move forward? I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like a very personal thing. I mean, how does anyone stay, get motivated to do that? I mean, it all depends on the thing. It all depends on how passionate you are about the thing, how much money you're making from the thing. And I think everybody's going to have their own stuff. I will say this though, with like the likes or the people downloading and stuff, like just from the podcast, this is a personal anecdote from my perspective. Like it's very easy to fall for that dopamine hit where 1 week, you're like, oh my God, 1,000 downloads in a day. And then the next week you're like, wait, 300 downloads. Like, what the hell? What did I do wrong? Like, did people not like that guest or what about this was like, and you end up kind of trying to chase that. And, it's hard for me, especially like it gets kind of demoralized, almost has the opposite effect if that goes away.
Okay.
So, I don't know, especially with something like this show, like I don't really make any money from it. And so it's hard to stay motivated when those numbers dip, and then like, hopefully, they always tend to go back up again. But, it is, for me at least, it does get like, kind of like, I'm like, oh no, what happened? Is this like a trend? Is it going to keep going down? What, and that's, it does make it easy to sort of fall for that and get like demoralized after a while.
Yes.
So I'm sure you've sort of been in that situation. So I'm curious for anybody listening out there, like thinking about doing this. I'm curious, have you thought about any traits that an effective, we'll call them side hustler, and traits of an effective side hustler? What kind of things, if you feel like you've got these personality traits, maybe you might make an effective side project founder, I guess.
Yeah.
I hate side hustler. Sorry, I said that.
It's all good. Yeah, I think the first thing that came to mind for me was high agency. I recently made part of my job at Stark is making content. So I feel you, by the way, about like, why did that video not hit? It's an asterisk, or it's a question mark anyway. Like, who knows? Like, it could be any sort of reason why. It's the platform. It was that you hit on a day where like Taylor Swift was in the news, and that was all people cared about. And it's like so many variables. But I made a video recently that talks about this concept really, really briefly, that the people that you love working with, I would bet, are probably high agency people. In terms of like the people you like to work with that are like the people who you like to work with, not the people you like to have around, because those could be like the personality hire joke where there's like the person that's there because they're fun. But like the person who shows up and they're like, yeah, this is a problem, and here's the list of reasons why I think we should fix it, and here's some possible solutions. What do you guys think? The person who sees a problem, it doesn't just complain about it, but like starts to pick something up and do something. I think that's like one of the biggest, it's one of the things I look for the most in people in general, for people that I want to work with. I don't think there's anything wrong with being someone who is like a little bit more relaxed, like I've said before. But if you want to have success in these things, I think high agency is one of the top things. I also think you can force yourself to become higher agency. That I feel like you're in a role where if you're like in an enterprise sort of situation where you don't know who makes the rules and why things are the way they are, and you're like, shrug, not my job. So like intentionally start to force yourself to get past that and be higher agency is very possible and doable. I think side projects are a great way to practice that too. But just like, here's a list of problems. What do I do to fix it? And start going down the list and checking stuff off and just kind of doing stuff. That'd be like one of the biggest things, one of the biggest traits for like a successful side project thing. Being resourceful, I would say. It doesn't hurt to be able to make connections and make friends and talk to people. So being kind, that's always important, especially if you care about it like being successful. If you only care about making something for yourself, that's also cool. And I suggest that actually. Like I record music and release music, and I haven't released a song since my son was born, but for obvious reasons. Like I've written and recorded stuff on my the few bits of free time that I find. But like my monthly listeners on that are 0. Like it's literally for me. Sure. And that's also okay. It's like it's cool to do stuff because it's creative, and that's fine.
Speaking of high agency, one of the things I was just thinking about as you were talking too is from a, job hunter's perspective, right? Or sorry, from a, how do I word this? From a hiring manager's perspective or recruiter's perspective, seeing that on there shows me that you're self-motivated, that you can do stuff without, having someone to be like constantly on you. You're passionate about something and you have that agency. And to me, I think that's like just a wonderful thing to kind of show off, even if you are like looking for work. And, again, it's one of those things like if a company doesn't like that and doesn't appreciate that, then it probably isn't the place for you to begin with. So, use that as a way to kind of weed those companies out that want a follower or a sheep to just sort of do as they're told, and not have someone that's going to actually like have that agency and ask all those questions that they might not be prepared to answer. I love that answer, dude. That's good. All right, so I'm curious when we talk about like these people ready to go off, so they got these traits, high agency, they're ready to do it. What are some pitfalls that you may have experienced that you think people should watch out for, so they can, maybe not fall for those same things?
I would say like manage expectations, especially when you're launching something. A common trap that people fall into, I think it's like, it relates to what you're talking about with like things like this podcast, or like when you're creating content, it's so much about the numbers of engagement that it can be so discouraging when you see those are low. Similarly, if you're like launching a side project and you're like, Product Hunt is the place for me, and you launch and you're below the fold, and it's like, but why am I below the fold? There's a lot of reasons why. I mean, literally, we were the second to last product at the start of the morning. And I was like, why? Why am I so low on the list? We ended up climbing slowly. We started off like at the bottom. We got up to like number 17, which is like pretty good for us. And if I put all my stock into that launch, I would be in a very negative place today. Be like, oh, we were supposed to get all these customers and it was supposed to have, millions of hits. And I was supposed to be at the top, but I wasn't. Well, also, if you look at the companies at the top, a lot of those are venture backed. A lot of those have marketing machines behind them. The top product yesterday was a marketing product. No, so they marketed it really well.
Imagine that.
Yeah, they like know what they're doing. There's also a bunch of unknown variables. Were the right people looking for me that day? Or, there's all these things. So if you put all the stock into that, it's risky. For Unslept, the music club project, I knew that launch, I actually expected it to do worse than it did, because I'm like, it's metal music, it's really niche and whatever. It did like the actual like Product Hunt support was great. But the conversion from I saw it on Product Hunt and upvoted it to I became a member was like one person, maybe 3 total, out of however many thousands saw it. So yeah, manage expectations. You can't put all your stock into that. If you actually want something to be like successful, you have to be on the horn for the thing all the time, constantly. I'm sure about podcasts. Like the average podcast, average isn't even where it's like 98% stop after 20 episodes. Like only 2% make it past that. I think that's the metric.
It's low. It's very low. Yeah. Very few episodes is the average. Yeah.
Very few episodes go that long, which means if you're able to be consistent and keep showing up, that like the chances are that you might get something. And like, I mean, I definitely have seen those podcasts where there's like thousands of episodes have been going for years and they don't have any listeners, but they just do it for them. Like that's fine too.
Yeah.
There's something about like showing up and not putting your expectations on the launch. My mentor actually rephrased launching yesterday as like a launch is a celebration of the start of something, not about like the end state. So when you like launch your product, it's like, I have started this venture. You can't put all your weight onto that one thing, especially if you want it to be a business. If it's like a newsletter, obviously you have to keep writing them, but like day one launch might be a great way to churn or to get some interest. But yeah, can't put your weight in it. And I also would say that like everyone starts a consumer product for their first side project, and consumer is hard and expensive. There's a reason why most consumer startups are venture backed, because you have to have cash to bring people in most of the time, unless you're just an amazing growth marketer like Nikita Beer, who's able to take like a polling app from nothing to being acquired by Discord. But what you don't see is that he's burning hundreds of dollars in server fees into this inefficient system because he had some money to burn on it. So consumer is really hard to start with. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like maybe look at some B2B stuff if you want to build a business for a side project.
So is that what you guys are I guess doing with Divinate is you saw that and realized like, hey, this is consumer stuff is difficult. But it's one of those things,
Yeah.
like you wouldn't have known that, I guess, right? You had to gone through all of
Yeah.
the other iterations of the other things and failed a little bit to get to the realization, that of your next stage. And actually, I just posted something on LinkedIn today about like success and failure. And we see success is good, failure is bad, but often, that failure helps us eventually get to a success, and that growth mindset is important. And so I think that's probably another trait maybe is, being able to see past a failure and being able to learn something from the failure and having that growth mindset and not being dissuaded by a failure. Even if it seems really big, it's an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, 100%. I've recently been getting a bunch of YouTube short recommendations of Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about space and stuff. And one of the videos I saw recently,
That's what he does.
It's so good. I've been learning about astronomy lately, and it's really cool. Anyway, he has one little clip where he talked about the way that our school system is set up to discourage any form of failure, and how that's like ascientific, and that like really we should actually talk about like when something doesn't work, why, and like let's break it down and talk about all the pieces of it. So yeah, like starting something and having it fail, there's a lot we learned to that. Like I said, SMS, not the thing.
But now
and I've heard other people say that since, and I'm like, it's so true. I get it. I've been there. Consumer, it's a leaky bucket, meaning every time you fill it, when you pick it up, it's leaking out the bottom. That's why like Threads maybe was one of the fastest growing products of all time, but to keep people on is hard. And they've actually done fairly well. Like they have a fairly active community, it seems, but it's a hard problem. It's a leaky bucket. So when you're getting people into the door for your consumer side project, you have to spend like 100 times more time on marketing than on the actual product. That's something to bear in mind if it's something you actually want to launch. I think also is like there's something to be said for just like a design side project that's like, I redesigned this app, and I know there's like opinions on like I redesigned Facebook. People like don't like that. I get it. But like it's cool to like be like, I was experimenting and played with a new style of design, and here's a fake app I made. Like that's cool and valid and part of your portfolio, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's all about how you position it too, right? And again, like kind of going back to like setting those expectations. It's setting expectations about what your work was and why it exists and all that stuff. So anyway, I think that stuff's really important, man. All right, cool, dude. Well, this has been amazing. I got some questions I like to ask all my guests before we get them out of here to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. But before we do that, give yourself a shout out, all the plugs, and let everybody out there know where they can find you and find out more about all the stuff you're doing.
Sweet. Yeah. So I'm on Twitter or X, which I will never call it that.
I actually, it's funny because I'm on like, every once in a while I'll just check in to see if there's a notification or something, but I refuse to go to x.com. I just still go to like twitter.com.
Twitter.com.
Just so they can see the analytics. Just so somebody can see. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. I'm interrupting.
When you authorize apps, to this day, it still is Twitter blue and the Twitter logo.
Yeah, it's
They haven't
insane.
fixed it everywhere still. Anyway,
it's ridiculous.
That's beside the point.
Jackass.
So I'm on Twitter at Treggify. I post about accessibility, about design. Sometimes you'll see me replying to tweets about music and metalcore specifically. I also talk about side projects like Divinate. So it's TreggIfy. That was a character I had in Maple Story back in like 2007, and it has stuck with me. And then degreeless.design, that's like degreeless.design, for a huge list of resources. It's curated, like I said, from beginning design, understanding typography and color to like actual heuristic analysis stuff, like super advanced topics. There's also lists of books I personally recommend and have at least flipped through and learned something from. There's that. There's also a newsletter attached. And then Divinate, which is a B2B SaaS thing. It's for user research. It costs money. So it's for like teams doing research. I'm not sure if your audience is the one for it, but check it out. I'm proud of the landing page. I think it's some of my best design work.
Yeah, at least get some inspiration from the landing page, if nothing else.
Yeah, divinate.co.
Right on, man. Awesome.
It's like divination, but with an E, no shun.
Sweet. Yeah, and we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So if you want to check out Tregg anywhere, please check him out there. So don't forget, everybody that is listening so far, if you're still here, awesome. Next week, we're going to release this on Tuesday. The following week, when this comes out, we're going to have Tregg on, and we're going to answer any questions. You just said a second ago, research, I think, and business. Is that what you said? Oh, I forgot. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Any sort of questions about business, conducting research, how to get people to actually care about your research. I'm super interested in all those sort of questions.
Awesome. And then make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/questions or beyonduxdesign.com/AMA. Either one. I'm not sure yet. I haven't made the page, but when this comes out, one of those pages will exist. And if not, I'll have the other point to the other. So you could use either of those URLs. But beyonduxdesign.com/questions or beyonduxdesign.com/AMA, and you'll be able to ask those questions ahead of time. And then when we get Tregg on that Thursday after this comes out, make sure to check out LinkedIn, and we'll have an event there. You can sign up and RSVP and all that business. All right, man. First up, what is your favorite non-design book?
My favorite non-design book. I have a huge bookshelf next to me. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, so
good place to put your books.
That's what they're for. Let's see. In the past couple of years, became a reader, and so when I was growing up, I didn't read very much because I always had a hard time finding books I was interested in. And what I've learned as an adult is I just didn't like young adult books, and I didn't know that. So like I should have just picked up like an adult fantasy novel and just like figured it out.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that. Like no one sat down and told me. So I've been reading a lot recently. That's the other thing I like at the end of the day, I always take time to read. That's instead of like Netflix or whatever, I sit down and read for like 30 minutes. I think my favorite book I've read in the past couple of years is, the one coming to mind is Ender's Game, actually. Really good. I mean,
I've heard the book is good. I've only ever seen the movie, but I've heard that it was the book was better. I mean, everybody says that about the book, but
it's way better.
Does anyone ever say the movie was better than the book? I don't know that anyone's ever said that.
Very rarely. I've heard people say that about The Shining. If you don't like his style.
But yeah, and then it's funny because Stephen King has said that like the movie was nothing like the book, and like they ruined the book. At least the Jack Nicholson version. I think there was one that was like a made-for-TV one that he was like a producer of that was more true to the book, but who knows that most people don't even know that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So Ender's Game is great. I would say like the Foundation series, it changed the way that I perceive humanity in a way that it just like blew my mind. I wish I'd read it a long time ago, but it's really cool because it's like, there's no main character. The main character is the Foundation. And so you get to see humanity over like thousands of years across one series. It's so cool.
All right, dude. Next up, what is your favorite non-design podcast?
Oh, man. Favorite non-design podcast. I think most podcasts I listen to now are not design related.
All right.
I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts.
Right on.
I'm looking at my list. What have I recently listened to? Ooh, I do like, I like Rob Walling. He's the B2B SaaS guy. So if you like talking about bootstrap SaaS, that's a good one.
I've never heard of that. Right.
Bad Friends podcast is really good. That's Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino. What's the one that I always listen to if it comes up? I like Cody Ko. He has one that's called Insanely Chill. Oftentimes he'll have like his wife on and they're just like kind of chilling and talking. But if you like YouTube creator type stuff, that's a pretty good one. Yeah.
Those are, I love those. They're just like kind of hanging out. I was telling somebody recently, like I like to listen to podcasts while I'm washing my dishes. So, after dinner and stuff, maybe my wife's bathing the kids or something. I don't know. I wash the dishes and it's got to be something relaxing, or not relaxing, but just light. Cause it's like, there's so much noise and people yelling and screaming in the background. I got to have an ear out. So I can't really pay attention. It's got to be just something. I don't know. I could listen to music, but I like listening to random podcasts.
So when I do the dishes, I listen to Intentionally Blank, which is Brandon Sanderson and Dan Wells, the two authors, talking about, it's kind of about nothing. So I don't know if you know who Brandon Sanderson is. He's like one of the best-selling fantasy authors. Okay. He actually I think it was last year, he did a Kickstarter, and it was the largest funded Kickstarter of all time. think it was like $55 million
Oh,
in funding.
good Lord. What was the goal?
Yeah. Way less than that.
Oh yeah, imagine like $1,000. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But it's cool because he sells his own books online, and you can buy a signed copy. And so the whole premise of the podcast is he sits there and signs the opening sheets, and it's like so mindless that he has to sign thousands of them. So he's like, might as well record a podcast with my friends.
He just talks.
So they just talk.
While
Yeah. Yeah, he's just signing books while he's talking.
That is really cool. What do you do with the extra millions that you make on? I guess you get to keep it, right? Is that how that works? You get to keep it. If it makes more?
They did a bunch of stretch stuff. So they delivered a bunch of books to people. They had like the thing was he wrote 5 extra books. He's known for his output, so he like writes a wild amount of books. He wrote 5 secret novels they didn't tell his team about, and then like surprised them during the pandemic, like, hey, I had extra time because I wasn't touring and signing books, so I wrote 5 more, and so it was like they did this rollout. So anyway,
I wish I could do that. I can barely write one. All right, what is your favorite meal? And this could be something you've cooked, something your grandma used to cook, something you had at a restaurant somewhere. Favorite meal?
So my favorite meal to cook, my favorite meal that like it's on our family's rotation is fried rice, and
all right.
It's like my personal specialty. I make it good too. Like I don't do like, it's not like a Panda Express fried rice where it's not really fried rice. Like we do it real. Like I make rice. I'm actually making it tonight. I made rice yesterday. It's like a whole, 2 cups of rice and just goes right in the fridge. And the whole point of fried rice is it's supposed to be leftover, cold, dry rice that was once cooked. I have a nice wok.
Otherwise, it gets all mushy and gummy. Yeah, exactly. Got to be cold and dry. Yeah, dude. All right. Yeah, you're doing it right, baby.
Exactly. Right. Got a wok spatula for Christmas, and like, I feel like I'm a chef back there, like ding ding ding, cooking up the fried rice. So I love that. I love making that. It's my like little specialty. And the secret is using MSG. MSG is not bad for you. If you eat Doritos and complain about MSG, you're lying to yourself, because that's what monosodium glutamate is.
Dude, it's just salt. That's all it is. It's funny. A kind of salt, I guess. There's this Chinese place by my house that advertises we don't use MSG. And it's so bland. And it's like, dude, just put some MSG in the damn food. Like, there's a reason why so many places put MSG in the food. So do you cook a lot? It sounds like you are you the house chef, or does your wife cook, or you do all the cooking?
Yeah, I've kind of become that. And I think that the secret that I've told my wife, and that she's never had to like do the type of cooking that I do. Like, just never been like a thing in her wheelhouse. And what she's like gotten a lot better over the years is like, if you know what the ingredient tastes like, you can mix and match and make something up. Especially when you're cooking. When you're baking, it's different. That's like a science. Right. When you're cooking, it's just like, I know what MSG tastes like, so I'm going to put it here. Or like, I know like if I use a lime plus this, like, it's going to taste like this. And so that's been the secret, is like taste ingredients on their own, and then like just feel free to try things and adjust. And if it's not great, we'll get it next time. Mm-hmm. That's the secret.
I love that. Anyway. Yeah, you mentioned woks. Like, my goal, I don't have it now, but like, because I can't afford it. But my goal at some point is to have one of those like big old Viking ranges, like the 70, 80-inch Viking ranges, like 8 burners on it. And I want to have one burner that's specifically for a wok, with just the giant flame with the bowl holder, so you can put a wok. And you actually get like that really hot wok, like where, you gotta be literally like, because mine now, it just like, it turns to mush. Like nothing actually cooks in the wok. Put too much crab in, it just gets like, it's basically boiled vegetables or whatever. But that's my goal, dude, at some point. So if you support the show, buy the book, donate on Patreon. My promise to you is I will buy a fancy Viking range.
That's the tier 4.
That's tier 4. And my heartfelt thanks, and a Viking range for me, not you. What is your favorite vacation spot?
I saw this question ahead of time, and I was like, when was the last time I took a vacation?
Yeah, now you got another kid on the way, dude. It's gonna be a while.
So I love New York. I have never taken a vacation in New York. I lived there for a couple of years. I flew out to interview too, but that was 2018. Love New York. So much stuff to do. It's endless. Before that, though, I would say Japan, specifically Tokyo. I love Tokyo. Been there one time, kind of how I met my wife. We were on a study abroad trip in Japan, but I highly recommend it. If you like the idea of Japan, but you want something a little bit chiller, because Tokyo during the day is like go, go, go. What's funny is that it's like they're the biggest metropolitan in the world, I believe. If not currently, then one of them. They all go to bed at like 10 o'clock. So the city shuts down. It's like the city that sleeps, period.
Really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting. They have nightlife, kind of, but like mostly on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Now, is that because people don't live in downtown Tokyo and they go to the suburbs maybe? Or is it just because people don't go out?
Yeah, after like 10 o'clock, they got work in the morning. They all go to bed. It's quiet after a certain time.
Weird for like such a big city like Tokyo. It's crazy.
Yeah. Trains stop running at a certain time too. So like most people will leave nightclubs and bars to hit the last train. If they're staying past that, they're in for the night. So they're like, we are going to party until it is daytime. That is a thing. That's part of their culture too. But anyway,
reminds me of New Orleans.
And then after that, I would say Naoshima. It's Naoshima. Naoshima is wild. If you're an artist or creative at all, and you are in Japan, try to go to Naoshima. It's unbelievable. It feels like something out of a James Bond movie.
Is it close to Tokyo, or is it? I guess Japan's not that big.
It was like a day trip down. That's a little island covered in art. It's art museums and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. I love that. I have never been to Japan. I'd love to go. Now that I got 2 kids, 6 and 8, chances of me flying internationally with them is basically 0 because they can barely sit on a couch for an hour without like having a fit. I can't imagine flying internationally. We'll see one day. All right. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
So Webflow, if it counts as a design tool, I would say Webflow is probably up there. I wish that I could say Framer, but I like old Framer better. I liked CoffeeScript Framer. I liked making like little interactive prototypes that felt kind of real. That was my jam back in the day. I've been a fan of Principle too. I don't know if it's being actively updated or not. I haven't used it in a while because Figma's prototyping is so good. Principle was good. I like the ideas behind origami. It's just a little too hard to get started with. I have never found a good time to like incorporate it into my flow. That's like an appropriate, like, oh, let me take a couple of hours to figure out how to use like it's never happened.
Yeah, who's got the time?
But I would say probably Webflow, and then I also use like all of the Adobe suite. I'm using video editing tools, Premiere, After Effects. I'm a big After Effects fan. I like After Effects. I just would never want to do it full time.
Yeah. I used to do, I didn't say used to do. Back in the day, I would fiddle around with like After Effects and stuff, or like clients, I would, add a little thing in their video if they had a video or some kind of animation for a thing that they would do. And it was very confusing. It's confusing
hard
for me.
The learning curve is so steep.
Yeah, I use Audition for editing the podcast, and it's the same kind of thing. There's all these panels everywhere. I realized like I really only need like 2 things. That's it. I need to like cut. I need to like put a bunch of stuff together, and I need like I set my plugins, I set my stuff, and it's there. I don't need it again, and I can drag and drop files and all that crap. And it's just like overload a little bit. I feel like After Effects is probably the same way. It's probably like just a few things you need. Although it is a design tool. I mean, as a design tool, you can add all kinds of text and shapes and animate and all that stuff. After Effects is pretty sweet. A little overwhelming for me, but very cool.
It is very much. There's a lot there. Actually, my friend's band, Fox Lake, they're now a like international touring act. I did their first logo. Their new thing is very different than how they started visually. But what the idea was, like, I made the Fox Lake, and then I took it into After Effects, and I made a water effect and like dunked the logo in the water. So it looked like the
cool.
logo is submerged. And then I exported that as an image and then traced it in Illustrator. And it felt cool to be like, I used like a generative tool in like a video tool over here and then made it into like a vector logo. I felt like a little cheater in a way. Like it was like
cool.
Easier than hand drawing the water effect. Yeah, I think there's value in learning those tools. They're hard though. There's a curve for sure.
Yeah, I use I used to. I mean, I've been designing for 20 plus years at this point. Back when you could download and get like a pirated version of like CS3 or whatever. Back in the day.
Nice. Yeah.
So I've been playing around with like Photoshop and Illustrator for a long time, and I still love Illustrator, man. Illustrator's like people are talking about like designing like logos and Figma and stuff, and I'm like, I just can't, man. Illustrator's my jam. I don't know. It's one of those things. Everybody's got their preference, but I like the Creative Suite. All right, Tregg. Well, this is awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. One more time before we get out of here, give us a plug. Let us know where we can find you on all the places online.
Yeah, I am on the internet. Honestly, if you search Tregg Frank, I'll probably come up.
It's a very uncommon name.
I'm there. But it's at Treggify on all socials, Dribble, all that different stuff, at Treggify. My portfolio is tre.gg. I pay dearly for that domain every year, $100
What top
year.
level domain is that? Where's that from?
I don't know. I think it's an island somewhere.
Okay. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, those little top level domains are not cheap. They're not cheap.
No.
All right, man. And don't forget, everybody listening out there, we're going to be on LinkedIn Live and actually anywhere. We're going to stream all over the place. Twitter, I think we're going to do that. We're going to do LinkedIn, YouTube, all the places. So check out beyonduxdesign.com/questions. Send us your questions and we'll be able to answer anything related to side hustle and business and research and all that stuff. And you could even ask Tregg about his metal band, all that stuff too. I'm sure we wouldn't mind talking about that. But yeah, we'll be there. So make sure to check us out, beyonduxdesign.com. And we'll see you guys next week. Tregg, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Well, all right, y'all. That's it for Tregg and me for today. I hope we helped shed a little bit of light on side projects, how to do it, who should do it, who it's a right fit for, and maybe when you should stop. But I'm curious, anybody out there done a side project? How'd it go? Let me know what you think on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I'd love to hear from you. And one more shout out to Leonard for leaving some incredible feedback for the Beyond UX Design book. Don't forget, if you pick up the book from beyonduxdesign.com/book and you leave some honest feedback, you'll get a chance to win a shout out on the show, a badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker, a free book, or even a chance to have a one-on-one with me. So head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/book and pre-order your copy for over 50% off, but that's only good for another couple of weeks. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would love it if you left a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you know. And if you know somebody who might find any of this stuff useful, then why don't you tell them about it? That would be fantastic. If you want to help keep the show independent and ad-free, check out those Patreon sponsorship packages at beyonduxdesign.com/support. You can join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin by supporting the show for as little as $3 a month. There's some awesome perks like that badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker, a shout out on the show every week. There's even a chance to meet with me for 30 minutes every month, so sign up so I can get that Viking range, please. My wife is really begging for some fried rice. And if you're looking for a UX course that's as unique as you are, do yourself a favor, check out Mento Design Academy. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/Mento. Use the promo code BeyondUX200 for $200 off the course. So join Mento and let your passions lead your learning journey. Remember to sign up for the newsletter. Check out all the past episodes along with all the show notes at beyonduxdesign.com. I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX and design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all. I almost said real job. Scratch that. I'm going to scratch that from the record.